Well, howdy, partner. I suppose you've heard the news. The Electron Boys are back in town and they're snatching up every remote they can lay their greasy mitts on. We've tried blasting them every which way, but nothing seems to work seeing as they're a cloud of subatomic particles. Now, I've been working in the old woodshed, and I think I got something that'll really show them what for. As an added bonus, it'll work to replace all those remotes they done did decimate. Now, if you're seeing similar issues, stick around and I'll show you how I got it done. Whew, sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what happened to my voice there, but I feel better now. I think I also got to lay off the caffeine because I think the Electron Boys were just me about to pass out. Anyways, all that aside, the blaster I made is very real, and very capable of remote controlling all kinds of devices. I got the idea a while back when I was visiting a local sporting goods store and they had one of those fake shooting ranges set up. I figured if the gun there could activate all the different animatronics, why couldn't I do the same thing to turn on my coffee pot or turn off the lights? After riding on the Ferris wheel in the middle of the store to have some time to think, I decided things would be set up like this. I would find a Nerf blaster and tear the guts out. In place of that, I would put together some electronics that are capable of acting as a normal IR remote. This would work great for devices that are already able to be IR controlled, like my TV or humidifier. But for other things like light switches, I'd create a separate device that would receive the IR blasts and do something like turn a servo. I headed out to the store, and after being dragged away from the Legos, I found where they keep the Nerf blasters. I wanted something compact that I could hold in one hand. I looked at a couple blasters, but settled on this one that was super marked down. This would work pretty good, but I wanted to check my local Goodwill to see if there was anything better. Found a couple of other Nerf blasters, but nothing that great. And that's when I found it. A blaster from a home laser tag toy. It was absolutely perfect. It already had a battery holder, an electronic trigger, IR LEDs and receivers, and best of all, recoil. Finding this blaster makes everything so much easier. Now instead of having to figure out where to put everything and how to get it all to fit, I just have to perform brain surgery and replace whatever control board's inside with my own. This blaster almost feels made to be modified. It's held together with regular Phillips head screws, and once they're all taken out, it comes apart no problem. Inside, everything is connected with wires, which makes hacking it way easier. I have some experience making controllers with Arduino from a universal remote video, so I started from there. I'm going to use the same Arduino Pro Mini that I did in that project, since it's compact and doesn't use much power. The only other thing I want to add that's not in the blaster already is a display to show what will happen when you pull the trigger. Once I had figured all that out, I went ahead and wired it up according to this diagram. As a last step, I connected up the display and then cut a hole in the blaster to feed the wires through. Then I got ready for the scary part, writing the code. I made some coffee, sat down, opened my code editor, and began coding. I was like Michelangelo sculpting David, Da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa, Mozart composing a symphony. Once the code was done, I uploaded it to the Arduino and I was ready to test. I closed the whole thing up, popped in some batteries, and pointed it at my TV. Surprisingly, it worked just as I wanted it to. I programmed in controls for a bunch of the remotes around my apartment, and started blasting. Bah, bah. With the blaster done, I just needed to figure out controls for the light switches. These are pretty simple and just need to receive some IR signal and then activate a servo. Since I needed a few of these and wanted them to be as compact as possible, I decided to go with an ATtiny 85 to control them. The ATtiny, as the name would suggest, is tiny, but more than capable of doing what it needed. The only thing that could be a little tough is getting them set up to be programmed, but you can find a link to a video I made on setting them up in the card above or the description down below. Once I had everything set up to program them, I had to decide how I wanted to put together my little light switch devices, and decided that the best and easiest way would be to make a PCB. And that's where the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, comes in. They offer a wide variety of services, but the one I was interested in was PCB manufacturing. After getting the circuit working on a prototype breadboard and coding it up to work, I hopped into some EDA software I found online and recreated the circuit there. I laid out all my parts and added a few finishing touches, and then sent the designs to PCBWay. A few days later, I received my finished PCBs. I was super excited to solder in my components and see my first PCB ever come to life. Everything worked just as I expected and looks much more professional than my hand-done PCBs from past projects. If you want to try out making some PCBs for yourself, use the link in the description and check out PCBWay. With the PCB and code done, I just had to figure out some way to attach my servo to the light switch. For that, I turned to my trusty 3D printer. I whipped up this quick design that attaches to the servo on one end and goes around the light switch on the other. This design is specifically for the light switches in my apartment, but you could modify it to do anything you want, like hit subscribe. And that's pretty much everything for this project. It was a silly idea, but I think it's a lot of fun. One last special announcement. Thank you to Pam for being my first incredible level Patreon supporter. If you want to help support me and see more awesome videos like this in the future, I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the description down below. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Make It For Less.